The year is 2001. You push the power button on a nondescript beige tower running Windows 2000. The hard disk drive hums to life and the computer chirps its way through its startup sequence. You press the button on your lean and sleek 30-pound, 15-inch CRT monitor. You're met with the quiet degaussed thump of the monitor and several minutes of Windows 2000's loading screen. You get up, grab a Surge from the fridge, and to yell at your sister that you're getting on the internet. So, she doesn't pick up the phone and break the connection. The modem screams into the primordial internet. Internet Explorer 6 blinks to life, and you type in the address of your favorite forum, www.beyond.com. Long before algorithms dominated the web and search engine optimization was a phrase granted its own acronym, the internet was a shantytown of handmade forums, ICQ chats, and niche web hubs for fans of this or that. It was a time when online spaces weren't about followers or clout. It was a time when there weren't billionaires handing out fractions of cents for spouting the correct propaganda. It was a romantic time where the communication was slow, thoughtful, always in long form, and the connections were real and raw, only subtly hidden behind digital avatars and persona. Webmasters ruled their digital watering holes with an iron fist, completely unaware that they were laying down the foundation on which the future of human connection would be built. Right at the center of our reminiscence today was Beyond, a small, tight-knit, and experimental online game creation engine. It was from these humble, anarchic origins My Life as a Spy was born, a quirky, yet enduring grid-based action stealth game where 3 or more color-coded agencies competed to deliver documents and eliminate their competition through acts of espionage. My name is Terry, also known as Ter13 on Beyond, or Hors on Discord. Frank Salas is leading our project to recreate and preserve Skysaw's hidden indie gem, and I'm working as the lead systems engineer for the 2D version of the remake. As part of our ongoing project to rebuild the game from scratch in the same engine 25 years later, I recently managed to get in contact with the original creator of My Life as a Spy, Skysaw, or as he's known in the real, Jamie Kowalski. He was gracious enough to spend an hour talking over the creation of the game and his thoughts about the game development as a whole, after 25 years of quiet meditation and practice. Let's dive right into that.
So I was probably just going to launch right into my questions that I had for you, if that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, let's start out a little bit more about you. You compose music, and I hear you're working on a game in Godot. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, yeah, my main gig is music. It always has been. I went to a school of the arts for high school, and then I went on to a little conservatory studying composition. So for me, it's always been about music, but programming has always sort of been a love. So for me, it feels like I'm using the same part of my brain, whether I'm, trying to get a piece of music to work or trying to get a bit of code to work. It just, I don't know why. I actually, a lot of my musician friends are coders, and some of my coder friends are musicians. So there must be some kind of connection. Right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like that, you mostly do arrangement for chamber music, yeah, but you also, I think I've seen a couple videos of you playing around with analog synthesizers, right?
Yeah. So, I'm classically trained, so my first love was like orchestral music. And I've written a bunch of orchestral pieces, but I also had a love of electronic music since I think it was like 1978. My dad bought me this little synthesizer, and I just, it just expanded my mind, and I was like, I got to do something with this. So I did some electronic music in college as well, and now I guess in different phases. Like I did a bunch of classical music for years and years, and then I put it aside and was working on rock music for a while, and I released an album. And I went back to the orchestral stuff and the chamber stuff, and now I'm back on electronic. But I think I'm not really sure if I'm going to move away from the synth stuff now, because you get much more instant gratification. I write a piece for an orchestra, it might take me a year to write it,
Mhm.
and it may never get played. If I do it like funk music, I can have fun in my studio and come up with something in a few days and share it, and more people are listening. So it's kind of a math thing for me. If I want to
Yeah.
share my music, this is the way to share it faster.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I something you said a minute ago kind of struck me that it feels like you're using the same part of your brain when you're writing code or when you're writing music, and you know, I couldn't agree more with that. Like so many people get stuck in this mindset of you're either left or right brained. If you're a programmer, you have to be this basement creature that has absolutely no artistic talent whatsoever in order to really flex your programmer muscles. But I think there's a cross-pollination of different kinds of analytical intelligence that really, when you meet that person that has both ends of it, and when you have somebody that has really like gardened both sides of the coin, like they benefit each other so much.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to have for both of those disciplines, you have to have that analytical part and you have to have a creative part. I
Hmm.
mean, because it's all, you're writing code. It's all about problem solving. It's like you know where you want to get, and there's an infinite number of ways to get there. So you're you're using the way that makes sense to it's it feels creative to me. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Depending on what I'm coding, of course. But I code for work as well, but not so much in the past couple of years. They got me doing my database stuff, SQL and bunch of stuff like that. But it's I don't know. I've actually taken a break from my game for the last few months. I just haven't even looked at it.
Mm.
Sort of in a weird place about everything. You sort of on a in my personal life. So I'm just sort of been not as productive in that or my music.
Hmm.
But, these things come in ebbs and flows, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely understand that. I've got a project shelved myself right now that I've been wanting to get back to since 2020. I hit it hard and fast, and then the dream got a little big for me.
Yeah.
The scope creep stacked up for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's for like coding games and stuff. It is always never. It's never come from a place of, well, I have this final vision. I'm going to complete this and I'm going to market it. It's always more sort of, let me experiment and see what starts happening. And I just wanted to like start coding something fun. And so I started coding something really big, and I was doing great for a while, but then you get to that point where like, well, the next thing I got to fix is going to be so hard.
Hmm.
I said on the fly.
Yeah.
So I had trouble finishing projects in my life, and that's one of the reasons why I eventually handed off my life as a spy.
Hmm.
Because I got kind of tired of updating it. There were some players are sort of mad at each other and like coming to me to want me to try to fix it. And it's just like, never wanted to get like that. I just wanted to make a little world people could come in and have some fun in.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely get that. The community management side of things is definitely it's a skill in and of itself. You know, oftentimes it doesn't intersect well with somebody who's I guess a little bit more work oriented that just wants to produce the project and put it out there and like tinker with things. You know, that almost requires a certain like quietude in your life that running a community does not offer you.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I would never try to make a multiplayer game again.
Okay.
It involves too many people simultaneously to worry about. And there's a feature, I don't know when you first came across the game, if it's still in there or anything, but I there was a penalty in the game for saying certain words over the group chat or whatever, and it was all just, I think it was, oh, I'm remembering now. Yeah, if you complained about the lag, if you actually use the word lag, it would like penalize you, and it would shame you in front of everyone. I was just tired. I was like, what do you want me to do? Buy some server farm or something? I just got a little secret at home.
So you're working on a game in Godot right now. It's a little bit pause.
I can give you a quick rundown. It's a, I guess technically it's like a deck builder. You know, if you're familiar with deck builders.
Absolutely.
But that's only sort of part of what's going on. It's sort of a mashup, I think, of like a deck builder and like old Atari adventure game where you're exploring and everything.
Mhm.
So the cards in your deck are like items, things you might need. Like there's a lantern or whatever can go in a cave, but it has to be currently in your hand, and a bunch of strange mechanics that I wrote around all that kind of stuff. And it's functioning now, but it's so little actual content. And so I started working on like fun graphic stuff for a while, because I didn't have like I never had like a design document or anything. I just sort of had it in my head, and eventually I sort of made a list of things I wanted to add and some ideas and stuff. But I never had like a timetable or an idea that was necessarily going to get published and distributed. But if I got there, I'd be fine with that. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's a classic image that circulates a lot in some of my game dev discords that, it's like a roadmap of development. And there's the portion that you're talking about, the lack of content. We call that content mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Content Mountain is a killer for a lot of projects, and that's where you wind up spending like 80% of your time. It's a tough phase. I'm more of a systems engineer, so like I like getting to Content Mountain and then just handing it off to other people.
I was actually having fun adding content to it, but as I mentioned before, it was like a point where I had needed to overhaul a system, and it was gonna be tough. And I sort of put it off for a while, and then I sort of lost my mojo.
Oh no.
Which may come back, In the meantime, I'm thinking of other games I could have started with that were much simpler.
Well, I mean, if you had an overview of the whole process beginning to end, and it was all easy, like, one, everybody would do it, but two, where's the fun in that? So
yeah. It's hard. Yeah, I have to have it. I have to scratch that discovery itch. So for me, it's like, let's see what happens. It's the same approach I take to writing music.
Yeah.
If I'm working on my synthesizer, I usually start with, gee, I wonder what would happen if I plugged this into that. And then I try and say, oh, that's weird. Can I make a piece of music? And that's a great way to work. But if I sat down beforehand and said, well, I'm going to do this, and it just wouldn't be as fun.
Looking back 25 years now, Beyond was a pretty niche corner of the internet. It was the only player on the block where, you could take and create an indie multiplayer game without having to do all the heavy engine lifting to get there.
And it was free, don't forget that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it was free. Yeah. So you were kind of right in the core of what a lot of us, older developers consider to be like the golden age of that platform. When the development of the engine was just constantly shifting between versions, major changes and minor changes were mixed together in minor version bumps. And, we didn't really know what Beyond was going to be, what it was going to grow into. That was still evolving based on the interests of the users. Can you tell me about being in that environment and what your original inspiration for My Life as a Spy and the process that development followed?
Well, I do remember a lot of community involvement. I don't know if there's a huge community at the time, but I remember that a lot of us would want to jump into each other's games and tell each other what they thought, and so that was really fun. I don't know if you still have that kind of interaction, because I haven't been there for so long, but that felt really good to me. Like we were all sort of exploring this new platform, and you go in and say, oh, look what this person's doing. That's kind of interesting. Maybe that might, give me an idea. But the original inspiration was, there was an old game that I used to play with my brother on the Apple II called Spy versus Spy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's a two-person game, and you're running around setting traps for each other and trying to escape with some document. So, obvious obvious correlation there. But we always had fun with that game. I just thought it'd be kind of cool to try something like that with a bunch of people and make different kinds of traps and different things. So I just sort of expanded until it got to where it did.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was always just like, okay, well, this is working now. What can I add? And then I would think of a new kind of crap or something, and I would add that. That was fun. It was fun developing. It was not fun, being a mod for my own game or
Yeah.
trying to deal with people. I just want to do the programming part. I don't wear all those hats. I
Yeah.
only wear one at a time. But
And how long would you say like that development period was, and how long before what ultimately emerged like really started to become a clear picture in your head?
it was such a gradual process. It's like Beyond was so easy to just create like a shell for a multiplayer game, and I had like nothing but the title and like little bases you can go in and out of, and I would post it because somebody might come in, or it was so easy, just to get to that point.
Mm.
And a lot of people were kind of doing that, so it just gradually built, just incrementally, night by night.
Yeah.
I'd add a little something, and then people come in, and then I guess people started coming back once it got to the point where it was actually interesting.
Hmm.
But I never had a plan.
Yeah, so you followed the just purely shoot from the hip iterative process rather than a formalized design document. That was the beautiful thing about the engine at that time. See, I came into the engine around 2001. I was 12 years old. I didn't know anything about anything, just absolutely had no idea what I was doing, and it was a great time. You'd hop on the hub, there'd be these cool projects that were in like these unpolished raw state, like I remember popping into My Life as a Spy, I think for the first time, and I don't even think that you had any kind of a gameplay loop to it. I just remember walking around the Waverly Mall for hours trying to figure out what is this, but it was magical,
And it wasn't much, but
I
as
mean,
long as you think it might be something, then it's
yeah, I mean, it was a different time. Like there was like no guardrails on what a multiplayer game was and what a gameplay and what a game development cycle was. You'd hop on Space Tug for a couple hours, and then once it filtered out, you'd just kind of scroll through the hub and see what your next addiction was going to be.
Yeah, I think it's just the fact that it was so quick to get some. I mean, it took 10 minutes to get something where you could pop in and walk around.
Mm.
That I don't even know if I had any plan to make anything. I might have just been sort of exploring, what is this Beyond thing? And then when I saw how easy it was to do that, I was like, oh, this could be a multiplayer thing. Who knows?
Mm.
So I didn't have any plans to make My Life as a Spy when I came into Beyond. This sort of happened.
How do you feel about the space we're in now, where the market is basically totally saturated with, game dev content producers and best practices and all of this?
Well, I do watch some online content developers, especially like video developers who are talking about things that are specific to the engine. We're just watching, somebody is coding something live and talking about it. I'll put it on the background or something. I don't really know what it's like to be kind of hardcore developer today. It seems a little bit foreign to me because I don't know, it's kind of a different mindset. And there's such a huge pile of games you could play. I mean, there's millions coming out every day. It's harder to get noticed, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the other thing that I notice about it is that it almost feels like game dev content production and game development sometimes run at odds to each other. There's a lot of people that like they're ostensibly developing a game, but really what they're doing is producing content.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, content is everything nowadays. It was nothing. We have, I don't even know if there was much on YouTube at that point, but certainly not. There wasn't such thing as an influencer.
Definitely around that era, it was mostly just vlogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vlogs, the occasional sketch channel or whatever, but yeah, the idea of sitting down and recording 9 hours of fighting with the system that you're debugging was just an anathema to the platform.
I think people making money off of YouTube was pretty rare. I mean,
yeah.
If anybody was, I don't know what they were doing.
Yeah. You know, I gotta wonder what the numbers are on that. Like, if it's actually still just as rare, or if it's even more rare, it's just like it's a bigger pool, you know? Just when you look at the raw numbers of people that are using YouTube versus the people that are actually making money off of it, you know?
Yeah. I someday I'm probably gonna be retiring soon, and it would be nice to make some money from YouTube somehow.
It's a very different mindset, content creation. Some of what I've done has been content creation, but I'm so antagonistic towards video content for programming that it's difficult for me to commit to the video side of things, which is where a lot of the interest is.
Yeah, for me, it wouldn't be anything like that. I have been building a channel of my music, and I guess I'm up to about 700 followers now. And I think I might sort of transition to some instructional stuff about synthesizers, because whenever I've sort of delved a little bit into that, those are the videos that people are watching. They'd much rather see me talking about my synthesizer than playing it.
So that's All Hands Music on YouTube, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's a lot of modular synth. I kind of spooled through it the other day when I was curious.
I've been slow to put anything up for the past few months. I'll be getting back to that soon.
Funny thing about the All Hands moniker, I actually, for years, thought you were being magnanimous with that name. I thought you were giving basically the whole Beyond community essentially credit for My Life as a Spy's creation. All hands is in, like, you know, everybody on deck.
It's kind of a thought. I came up with the name All Hands, like, I think I was probably like 1980 something, when I just wanted like something to represent my music. I was doing copyright All Hands Music, but I did think of it as sort of, I did think of it as just sort of community kind of thing. I didn't specifically mean, you know, that we all made this together, but it just sort of felt like a friendly thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I always interpreted it that way, like that you were being magnanimous and downplaying your role in the creation of My Life as a Spy, but
like, this is kind of a funny coincidence, and you bring this up. I never thought about it, but I actually came up with All Hands from a film company called Everyman Productions, which made. Have you ever seen The Prisoner? It's a show from the '60s. They only made 17 episodes, but there's just a gigantic cult following, and I've always loved the show. And it's this sort of spy based, which is coincidence. That's what I'm talking.
It's been ages since I've seen this. Okay.
And some of the names of the NPCs in My Life as a Spy were taken from names of characters in The Prisoner.
Oh, that's such a deep cut.
And a bunch of the other names were names of famous composers that aren't quite as famous as people would recognize on the street. That was my mashup of music and spies and programming all in one.
Did you struggle at all with Beyond as an engine, or like the technology of, you know, 2003 during that development period? What walls did you wind up running into during development, and did any major features that you dreamed up wind up getting cut due to limitations?
Well, I didn't really see any walls in the way of doing what I wanted to do, because I think I already had it in my mind. I was just going to do what the engine could let me do.
Hmm.
So I didn't plan something that I didn't already suspect was easy enough to do.
Mm.
There were a few things that tripped me up, but the thing that was the hardest for me to figure out was that when you see when you kill another spy, or there's certain times when it would keep a reference to like who killed you or who you killed. It would just be a reference point so that
Hmm.
the game can keep track. But what would happen was it would store that reference inside your character, and when the other person logged on, they would like appear like inside of you because it wasn't just a it wasn't just a reference. It was like
Yeah.
your whole character.
Yeah. Oh my God, this is such a classic problem with the engine. I've spent like a decade helping people solve this problem and coming up with strategies for avoiding it in the first place.
Yeah.
I've actually made decent money helping solve this problem after a game has gotten very deep in the sauce and realized they have it. On the engine, we call it the rollback bug.
Yeah, and right, they would lose all of their latest stats and everything because it had stored earlier stats in the first one. I understood what was going on, but it because I can't say I was very proud of the actual code that I wrote
Mm.
for Life the Spy. It got kind of hard to go back and debug stuff at a certain point because I got lazy and I just sort of started piling stuff on. Something that I mean, I learned that lesson pretty well, and that doesn't tend to happen to me anymore. But
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, this is low stakes. This doesn't matter until suddenly I realized all these people wanted to play, and that they were getting mad at me because they got rolled back. So
One of your enduring players, he goes by iPause or Roger. He actually pointed this out to me that you had this system that you'd implemented and this little triangle shaped area right off the spawn point where you would put stuff that you wanted to make certain was garbage collected. I think the name of the area was Nowhere.
I don't remember that at all. It sounds really interesting. It's sort of like just a trash bin for people.
It was like apparently the game was just like shoving things into this section of the map, and several of your more clever players had figured out that they could go there and they could kind of observe the churn of objects leaving the world by watching that space.
Hilarious.
When you finally started to see the game in action and players started really getting into it, were there any like emergent behaviors that came about as consequences of your design that surprised you? Anything that really sticks out? And did this ultimately affect your development trajectory over time?
Well, speaking of emergent behaviors, I mean, that's really what I'm trying to get.
Mm.
I'm trying, when I create something like that, I want to see things that surprise me. So as one of the philosophies I had for making the game asymmetrical, like you have to join with these teams, and I wanted to, have the teams be different enough that they would interact. And I figured with three, and then later, 4 and 5 teams, that there would be enough different stuff happening and people working together and working against each other in different ways that the players would discover things that I never intended. That was my intent, was to have things happen that I never intended.
I love the irony to that.
Well, I mean, it's I really love the whole concept of emergent behavior in anything, and I use it in my music. I make with the synthesizers. You have 100 of these little modules, and they can plug in an infinite number of ways into each other and everything. I always want to try to make things that are going to surprise me,
Yeah.
and that's the sweet spot for me. That's the thing that tickles my brain. It's like I have general control over the world, but I want some chaos inside it.
Yeah. When Frank approached me about this project, he actually sent like this pile of design documents. And, I'm far from the most experienced in my life as a spy player. There's so many people that know the game so much deeper than I do. So I was nervous at first because I was like, I've got the technical clout to do it. But as for the game knowledge, like we have something that, one, we don't have working host files for. Two, we don't have the original source code that I can pour over to figure out how things work. But just page after page of like deep documented systems work just emerged, and I managed to find a copy of the original game's map that I then had to. Are you familiar with regex?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to use regex to convert it to the new object format that I'd set up for my version of the game. And then, like, once that map popped in more or less complete, I just looked at it and I was marveling at the asymmetric design you put in, particularly in the countryside map with the original agencies. Just like the way these agencies were set up, the differences in what each agency had. You did a great job with that. I mean, just hats off. The fact that the black agency has, 5 of these security bots in it? Way more than that, actually. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 just in the lobby, whereas everybody else has like 2, maybe 3.
Oh, yeah. Well, the black spies knew what they were doing. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't remember that level of detail. So
Mm.
it's always interesting to hear when I was talking to Frank when he first contacted me. He was reminding us stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like I hadn't thought about the actual game,
Yeah.
the working game in years, and I hadn't heard any. I didn't even know people were still playing. That Major was even still hosting it,
Yeah.
and because the last time I'd heard from him, it's been a couple of years, I think.
Mm. Yeah, actually, I like Naju. We've run in the same circles for a long time. Me and him are mostly kind of like behind the wheel guys. We like to get into the back room and like tinker with things, fix big problems, and then leave. We're not big on the maintenance cycle. We're not big on the cloud chasing or the credit sort of thing. We really like crunchy problems. And I think he was, right before the rights transfer, he was really digging in deep on getting a big modernization push. But he did a great job for the last 17 or so years, sort of maintaining it and keeping it compiling, because the engine has changed a lot, and sort of trying to keep it as a preservation piece. And he's been doing a good job of hosting it the last several years as well. Writing a game as a solo developer is a really hefty investment of time and mental endurance. Tell me about something that happened on the subject of like scope creep that you encountered during development, and was there any cut content that you wound up having to pull?
I don't recall specifically if there was planned content when I stopped.
Mm.
There was, I kind of remember something, but I don't remember what it was supposed to do. There was something with some kind of rings he would throw on the ground, and I can't remember what it was exactly. But it was just, I only stopped because that was the point where I was kind of losing interest in developing in general. But if you really look at it the right way, the entire game was scope creep.
Yeah.
But it was welcomed scope creep.
Yeah.
Because originally it was just, well, let me see if I can get people to run around in a world.
Yeah.
And then it was, how do I make this more interesting? I actually had a couple other games something on.
Mm-hmm.
One I never finished, which was called Murder Most Beautiful, which was sort of like a detective sleuth game. I guess it probably worked like something like Among Us, but I've never played that game, so I'm not sure. But the other game people were playing, it was called Ouijibo.
Yeah.
Ouijibo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a Scrabble-like?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually a game that I invented with Scrabble tiles before I did the computer game. So that was more straightforward, so far as having the end goal in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember Ouijibo. I remember seeing that up for many years. Back when Dreamseeker used to show the ads, your banner for Ouijibo would come up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day
I was very proud of that banner, by the way.
Yeah, it's kind of a forgotten thing, but like Dreamseeker used to have this spot above the stat panel that would rotate ads for games on the platform.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think there's many of us left that remember that because, like, I think me and Lumix and Naju are the oldest remaining accounts at this point. We're the
I remember Lumix.
Yeah, Lumix is doing a bang up job of maintaining the engine at this point, and he's such a lovely human being.
Yeah, that mention it. I guess when I saw a couple of Frank's YouTube videos showing the old My Life's a Spy, I didn't think about it at the time, but I realize now that back when I was running it, you could only see in a tiny little window, and now I was seeing like more of the map than I had ever seen before all at once, which was kind of cool.
That was one of the things that we've really shifted away from. It wasn't possible at the time because like Dreamseeker had like this stock UI where you had your output panel on the bottom right, you had your stat panel on the top right, and then you had your map on the left. And because of the way that the window was often compressed, a lot of people stuck with these like square viewports that you could see into. You know, after I want to say like 2005, 2007, it was possible to really homebrew your own UI, but a lot of people stayed away from it because it was difficult. UI is hard. And, you know, one of the things that I've been doing over the last several years is I threw myself hard into UI design, and I created a framework called HUDLib that is like this widgetized, like object-oriented UI framework where I've got like these different widgets that perform different tasks and are easy to extend and modify and restyle. You know, very data driven.
Yeah, it's always good to have like a library or something like that. You can pull stuff in.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's good to have the library.
I've been doing this Godot. I feel like the UI has been a lot easier than I remember it being in other projects.
Yeah, definitely. Those modern engines provide you everything you need. Yeah, like I said, it's good to have the UI, but writing the UI is hell. I went through, I think I'm on, formally HUDLib is like 1.0, but I call it 8.0 because I've been through 7 different major renditions of the entire library, getting the framework right, getting all the underlying tech for it right. I went wrong directions for many years. It was nightmarish to get it running properly over a network because, you know, beyond being entirely server side, like you have to be extremely sprightly with your code. What's your takeaway? You know, looking back to, you know, this game that you created, you know, how do you look at it as a creator today, and what'd you learn from developing it? And what, if anything, do you wish you'd done differently?
I have to say that I was actually quite pleasantly surprised when Frank contacted me. First of all, because I told you that I wasn't even sure it was still getting played. I didn't even know if Beyond still existed. But when he told me like the impact it had for him and how, you know, people were still playing, people still loved it, it was a great feeling, you know, to feel like people cared about something I did. So I guess I wasn't necessarily thinking about it as a proud accomplishment until he said that to me, you know. So sometimes it's hard to know what you have while you're in the middle of it, and it's nice to know that it's going to live on. You know? I think probably if I had kept writing it, I would probably hit even harder the idea of the asymmetry. I don't know if there's a good way I could have done it, but that's something I was always thinking about. So it was really important to me to have people have to choose which perk set to have instead of, you know, building a character stronger and stronger until they have all the perks.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want just a bunch of equally matched gods fighting each other. I was thinking, in my mind, it was sort of like a rock, paper, scissors kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, not directly, but that sort of idea that anybody could beat somebody else with their particular skill set, even if the other person might be better on paper.
Yeah, that was one of the things that comes up a lot in the design documents I was handed is the phrase rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And another thing that was really emphasized was when we were talking about like the curves for the various stats of the player. and the quality curves for equipment. It seems like if these formulas are accurate to what you designed, the majority of the contribution is already there, quality 1 or stat level 1. It's it's like the other half of it kind of comes in as you progress the stat. That's just a really good hallmark of design, where you're not just dealing with these like rolling higher and higher numbers, where you still have a chance if you're like a level or a rank 1 player versus a rank 20.
Right. I think actually, if I were doing it today, I might make the weapon system a little bit simpler.
Mm-hmm.
Just from the point of view of like it just seemed like there were so many different numbers, something a huge range something might be, and there's like tiny increments of numbers. And I think it might have been easier for the players if it was more kind of chunkified.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how I don't know how it actually translate in play, because you have to play it to know how it affects it. But I did kind of feel like maybe it was visually over complicated, if that makes sense. Just for looking at it, like if you're comparing a couple of guns in the vending machine, and you say, okay, well, this is a little bit different, tiny bit different. It's like I think I would want it to be a little bit more of a clear decision for what you wanted at that moment. But it wouldn't be a big deal. I'm just saying if there was some small thing I could change.
Yeah, it's something that we've been working on this week. Combat system has been kind of what I've been pushing on, and I've made some decisions that have already heavily affected the way the game plays, and like that's always like a nerve-wracking decision when you're trying to preserve and modernize. Like those two things are at odds with each other. I don't know if you saw the video that we posted. I think it's almost 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah, I think I probably saw it.
Yeah, so we added that smooth opacity system. Like that's a shader I drop over the viewport, and I use some tricks to make that work. That smooth opacity system like does have kind of a big difference between the opacity system you used. So like we can't do bidirectional hit detection quite the same way that you did, where you're checking if both players are in view of each other to see if a shot can connect. Yeah. So we can't do that because we've already deviated from that built-in opacity system. And as a result, what I wound up doing was adding physical projectile traces, where we would actually move a small projectile object through the world from A to B, and if it hits the player, you hit. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, so like that's induced some changes to design that they feel good, but it's always a little nerve-wracking to make a change. And overall, I've done a little bit of rebalancing to some of the weapons to give some of the more obscure weapons a little bit more of a use case.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely.
By the way, I knew zero about guns, so whatever images or stats I use were totally.
I mean, I don't think a selling point of the game was it being a highly accurate military shooter.
Oh, that's true.
Like
nothing accurate about that.
Yeah, I appreciate one of the guns that you pulled in was called a Walter,
right?
Rather than a Walther.
Yeah, that was probably not on purpose.
Yeah. No, it's cute. You've created a we have a Walther at home sort of brand for My Life as a Spy's World, and like that's canon now.
I wonder what else you could misspell.
But I mean, I don't think you ever actually exposed any of the names of any of the guns that you put in. Like you just you had one listed as like a Glock and one as a Desert Eagle, but like in game, like the Glock wound up just being the standard pistol, and the Walther wound up being, I don't even know if that one was used, but then you also had the Desert Eagle wound up being the heavy pistol. So at that point you kind of hid the inaccuracy simply just by simplifying.
Yeah.
And I think that's better. Those weapons are more iconic now because of it.
What?
Well, what advice would you have for fans of your game who want to make their own game? Over the years I've run into a lot of folks who talk about creating a spiritual successor to My Life as a Spy, and I'm sure they'd love to hear a little wisdom you have to offer specifically to them about the development process.
My main piece of advice would be, if you're not loving what you're doing, you should probably stop and think about it some more. It was always fun for me, even in the frustrating moments. It was fun. The creation process was fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're writing a game, make sure it's one that you want to play. That's why I made it, is because I wanted to play it.
Hmm.
I don't have much more beyond that. I don't consider myself like a guru programmer, even though I do it for a living and doing it most of my life. I never got to a point where I thought I was like some super great coder. It's more just about the ideas for me.
Yeah, no, I think that is what makes you recognizable. You were there at a time where like you were kind of touching that third rail of creativity because there was nothing codified. It was just like this halcyon time in online indie game development and in Beyond's history where everything was being laid down, where everything had a blank canvas to stick to, so it wound up sticking around.
Still blows my mind that it stuck around. But
Yeah.
glad it did.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely smaller every year than it's ever been. Like if you go to the website, it looks completely dead. But I stood up a Discord in like 2019, and most development activity goes on in that Discord now. We've got about 2,700, 2,800 members at any given time, and it's a slow-paced Discord because it's very like the whole energy of the Discord is less let's talk about development and more let's help each other to develop.
Yeah.
That quiet is a good space to be counterintuitively for a community on social media.
I think it's just my personal opinion, but I think communities on the internet really suffered when Facebook became really big and bulletin boards started going away.
Yeah.
So I had a couple of groups I was involved with that I just felt like they were family and we helped and shared with each other.
Yeah.
Had one, a composing group. It was small, but we always listened to each other's pieces and gave feedback and talked that. It wasn't just, hey, listen to me. It was, it was sharing. Another group I was with for lucid dreaming. That was just like it's really close family. And it just disappeared when Facebook came.
I am turning 40 this coming year. I have been chasing the dragon of like the last days of that BBS energy my whole life,
Yeah.
It was a different thing, and I'm not that old, so I get to say it's not just me being old and going, well, back in my day, like it
Trust me, it gets worse as you go.
but
a lot more back in my day.
yeah, there's just there really was a different energy. Like people didn't realize at the time on like BBSs and forums that they were broadcasting. They didn't realize they were talking to an audience. They weren't trying to talk to an audience. They were talking to each other. And that's really what's changed with social media is people are now talking past each other.
Yeah. Or just cursing at each other.
Oh, yeah, that too. I mean, not going to the dark side of it, but I mean...
there's always been some of that, but...
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the flame wars in the old day were almost a little darker because they were so personal.
It was much easier to take on stuff personally because it was also new. It's like, where is this random hate from nowhere coming from?
Yeah, and that's...
Now it's like, you just expect it.
Yeah, and like that's been the hard part of, running my Discord community is kind of balancing that. Okay, like we're creating this space for developer positivity. We're kind of deliberately creating a hug box in an internet, a broader internet ecosystem that is very anti-hug box. It's the antithesis, you know? So it's tough to balance those two levers with a community where you want that authenticity, that vulnerability, you want people to be able to be themselves, but then also we kind of have to recognize that for those of us that are terminally online, ourselves are a little bit of dicks sometimes. Like I said, I definitely agree with you. Like that period that Beyond occupied during, you know, what a lot of us refer to as the golden era is different time, and you want to bring it back, but you realize like you kind of can't. I mean, while you don't necessarily like look back at it and like see, you know, your influence in that space. I mean, I hope I'm not embarrassing you by telling you that like your name is one of those that like just will get dropped absent context of like that great period of time that people remember fondly.
That's a funny thing to think about. It's not what I was going for, but you know, it's fun to hear.
Yeah, I mean, Lummox still brings up, you know, the Friday nights on the hub where, you know, somebody would boot up Spies or, you know, Quidjabo or, you know, I think Incursion was his game
on there too.
Yeah, he did have a chess game. Yeah,
I left that in a bad state.
Yeah, I watched a developer friend tilt on a chess AI that he was working on for like 3 months a couple summers ago, and like the depth of that is amazing.
Well, this wasn't any kind of. This was not a chess engine.
No,
just person versus person.
No. Yeah, no, I don't think any of us were in a state where we could have bitten that off at the time.
Yeah, that's pretty deep.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was a good time. Like people still bring up like Load Wars. People still pine for that one. You know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just want to thank you for your time tonight.
Well, it's great to reminisce, and so I appreciate you talking to me. I'd love if anyone would check out my YouTube music page.
So that's going to be All Hands Music on YouTube. All one word, All Hands Music.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I will leave you to the rest of your evening. It was a great conversation.
Yeah. Good. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
In thinking back 25 years, it strikes me that the word for what we used to do has become a slur in the modern version of that space. Today, calling someone a hobbyist isn't a compliment. Maybe that's just how time goes, and the things we used to do and say fall out of style. Or worse, tarnish in the eyes of those who come after. Perhaps the most interesting headline here is that Jamie was a true indie developer before the word had even become currency carried in the pocket of everyone who would comment on such things. But in taking a stroll down memory lane, I can't help but feel blessed to have grown up in the tail end of an era that is now starting to fade. I'm grateful to Jamie for joining us, to reveal what it was like in the trenches at the time. Over the years, the names accumulated a legendary status to a small niche community that sprang up from the seeds of their labor and discovery. We grew to view them as gods who came, cultivated the garden which we would inherit, and would later ascend to places beyond our reach. Today, we reached out and pulled one of those gods back to earth, revealing he was just a humble and thoughtful man. His grand creation just a plaything for his own amusement. His legacy nothing more than footprints, not of a giant, but of a curious passerby. Still, even peering through the embroidery of time that the community has heaped upon his name, this does not, for me at least, diminish the impressiveness of what was left behind in his passing. And so we've revealed the reality behind the myth. And yet the footprint remains, embedded in the code, waiting to be traced again. Jamie has moved on to new creative horizons, leaving the garden behind. But for those of us still captivated by the architecture of the playground, for those of us still forging our own path through the winding road of creation, the work continues. Jamie left us with a timeless reminder. If you aren't loving what you do, you need to reassess. And I want to close on this thought. For all of us engaged in creative pursuits, let's all take a step back from thinking about the marketing process, from thinking about how to farm engagement, and from how to build a powerful brand that will one day get a whole section of a theme park dedicated to it. Instead, let's all dig in for the pure love of process, of solving the hard problems, and enshrining our reverence for our influences into our own works. Let's stop worrying about the footsteps we leave behind and instead be present while we take that next step forward. As a friend of mine always says, make it exist first. You can always make it good later.